here today with Hewitt Douglas, who is seeking a spot on the Springfield Park Board in the April 2nd municipal elections. If you would, thank you for being here. If you could start off by just telling us a bit about yourself and why you are seeking this office.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm a 38-plus year resident of Springfield. I came to Springfield in 1980 with the anticipation of working for the state of Illinois for a couple of years and then getting out and get a real job. Well, I found out this was a real job. I've started out as an adjudicator, and I have progressed or promoted up to my current position of Disability Appeals Officer. We, in the Bureau of Disability, Department of Human Services, we do Social Security disability claims, and as an appeals officer, it's my responsibility to review claims of individuals and allow them a face-to-face interview after Social Security has reviewed their file and determined that they may have shown medical improvement. These are individuals who are already on and then cut off. In the 38 years plus I've been here in Springfield, I've done a lot of different things. My interest in running for park board is that I anticipate to retire within another year and a half, and I asked myself, what did I want to do? And I want to keep myself busy, interactive within the community, and I thought running for a park board position would do that. I am an outdoors type person. I enjoy being outdoors. I do everything I can to try to help in the community in a lot of different ways, different organizations I'm a member of. I have one daughter and one grandbaby, which to me is the greatest grandbaby of all time.
Okay, great, thank you. So, according to his website, the Park District oversees 35 parks, 23 miles of bike trails, 4 golf courses, the zoo, the Nelson Center, and then offers a variety of educational, recreational programs, classes, athletics. What do you think the average Springfield resident doesn't know about the Park District that you wish they did?
What the average Springfield did not know about the Park District?
Yeah.
I think what they don't know, which I didn't realize, the many programs that the Park District runs within their facilities. I was somewhat surprised to find that they have daycare center and other different programs, training programs at Nelson Center. That is one thing I think most citizens don't understand, that they think the park is the park, the ground, the grass, the trees, the swings, and don't realize that the Park District here in Springfield is involved in a variety of different community activities to strengthen the community, and particularly children activities.
In other communities, parks fall under the municipality's jurisdiction, and it used to be that way here too. Since you're running for a seat on the park board, I'm going to assume you think the district should be separate from the city. So talk to us about why this arrangement makes the most sense for residents of Springfield.
Well, I think being independent and having your ability to make your own decisions is very important. I've always been the type of individuals that I prefer to be in the room where the decisions are made than to be outside the room and told what the decisions are, because I honestly believe that minorities should have a voice. And in my life, I've always been that voice, that person that can stand up and defend himself and others. I think that the park board, being separate from the municipality, is a very strong, a good opportunity for them to be able to make their own decisions without these influence of others.
Great. So what do you see as the most pressing issues facing the Park District, and how would you as a member of the Park Board address them?
In my research and in my listening to citizens, I believe the most difficult thing with the Park Board right now is maintenance and personnel. The personnel issues are very serious. Many organizations have to start figuring out a way to better work their budgets because of personnel. From my understanding, the park board has had some reductions in personnel, which again affects the efficiency and effectiveness of the responsibilities that they do. I think what I've heard and from the citizens that I've talked to, one of the main issues is the small city parks and accessibility to the children, to the handicap. And that is something I want to look into and help more with if I can.
So is there one particular issue that kind of really prompted you to?
The one particular issue that prompted me is the greens at Lincoln Green and the flooding at Lincoln Green. I'm a golfer. And, you know, that's the one thing I have not been involved in all the different activities that the Park District does. As I said before, I'm running for the first time, so I'm learning as I go along. And the one issue that really most of my associates and friends deal with is in regards to the golf courses. I think we have some excellent golf courses, and I would like to see them back to where they were, offering many different types of tournaments. We lose a lot of participation from citizens in the city and from outside the city that will go to Piper Glen and go to other private golf courses, when I think public golf courses are very efficient and effective.
Do you think, would you like to see the Park District expand, like its holdings, its offerings, if there were additional available land out there?
You know, that's almost a question that you'd have to ask once I'm in the Park District bureaucracy, because in order to know whether you want to expand or can expand, just like they're doing with the Hunter Lake, there's a lot of things that have to be determined in order to make that decision about expansion. I believe that what I've seen is that the city of Springfield has a great deal, many parks. However, the participation from the citizens in those parks, I believe, are hampered because of accessibility sometimes issues, particularly with the handicap, and as I said, with children. Some of the smaller parks particularly don't seem to have the playground equipment that would entice young folks to come to that park. When I was coming up in Chicago and in East St. Louis, the parks were a place where particularly young folks could gather and play ball and do a lot of different things, because the streets are not safe to play ball in the streets like it was. But
speaking of safety, how would you assess the safeness or safety of the parks in the district?
Good question. I believe the parks are safe. My concern, though, is the vandalism and so that happens evidently after hours. I've not heard of a lot of incidences harming individuals or robberies or so in the parks, but I do hear from citizens that tell me about their complaint about the damage that goes on in the parks. Now, of course, as a golfer, when I come to play and, you know, the green has somebody rode a bike through it or rode a car through it, it's very disheartening, but I think the safety is a very important issue. The police force for the Park District, I believe that from what I've been told, they've had to cut staff, and so, which makes it more difficult to surveillance and to be almost everywhere at one time. So safety issues are very important.
So that's kind of was a bigger issue a couple of years ago, the park police, whether they should even have it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And now they seem to have a plan in place that seems to be working.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it seems to be working okay. But again, I think that there are still some complaints about the vandalism and the issues of destruction going on after hours. What can you do about that? to me, you have to have a better security process in shape to try to see. My thing is that today, when it comes to security, cameras can be used just about everywhere. It can be placed just about everywhere at a very economical cost. Some folks talk about the privacy and so, but if you're in a park, I believe privacy is no longer an issue.
You signed the waiver.
So do you think that the Park District should have its own police force, or are there some intergovernmental agreements that could be had regarding
I don't
sharing
know.
police?
I don't know about
Okay.
the other intergovernmental agreements, and so in regards to, I believe the Park District needs, this city has more police than ever I've seen in my life. But the thing is, I believe that the security needed for the parks is important, and could it be that it could be done by others, city, county, individual? It could be, but at this point, I don't think I have the information necessary to make that determination.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You talked earlier about some budget constraints that the Park District may have encountered. How would you, if you're on the board and you get the annual budget every year, how would you approach that? What principles or guidelines would you use when presented with a proposed budget?
Well, I think when you're doing a budget, I've learned that you have to look at what real income you have, and to determine based on the real income you have and anticipated income, because a budget is no more than a proposal for what to do. I would hopefully be able to sit down with the other board members and the president to try to determine where our priorities would be, and in particular where we needed to increase or decrease budget line items. I don't know what else I can say about that one, because again, most of these questions are about a person who doesn't have the insight
Sure.
that a current board member has. But my experience in building and developing budgets and operating on a budget have shown that you have to really watch what you're doing, what you're spending, and you have to work very hard on trying to accomplish resources that can help you.
One of those line items that they'll be discussing for this coming year's budget is the preschool program.
Yeah,
There's this recommendation by the staff to close the preschool program there. Got a lot of parents upset. I guess talk to us about your thoughts on this program.
Man, when I read that, it really got to me a bit, because that's one of the programs that I had looked at that didn't know about at first. And once I realized and started reading about it, it came out in the paper that they were determining to close it. I thought to myself, well, if they're closing it, I hope they've done the research necessary for them. They say it's because of declining enrollment, and so that may be the case. And I think the only way you can really look at if it's reasonable to do that is to look at the budget and see where those resources are. If you're not getting enough individuals to make it worthwhile, then it has to be cut. I'm very sensitive to the children's needs, particularly small children. I think those are the ones that make a difference in this world, because I tell folks all the time, how you treat a 6, 7, and 8-year-old really determines how he's going to be when he's 21, 22 years old, okay? So that was, I'm sure, a very difficult decision to make, but, and I'm kind of glad I wasn't there at the time.
Do you think that the district's programs are affordable so that everyone can access them?
To do it again, I'm sorry.
Do you think the Park District's programs are affordable so that everyone has access?
Reasonable. Expenses have to be covered, and in order to do that, you have to have adequate resources. With me being a golfer, I see Springfield, Park District golfing as very reasonable for its citizens, even for visitors. Just like many other things, it would really take a determination of what is actually needed to determine what could or could not be done.
The Park District also runs the zoo. What is your impression of how the zoo is run, and are there anything expansions you'd like to see? Or
I enjoy the zoo. A few times I take my daughter when she was younger out there, nieces and nephews when they come to town. As one of the things that I try to take them out to the lake area and love Lincoln Trail and to the zoo. The zoo needs to always, I think, have a professional manager that really knows how to treat animals and how to prepare proper enclosures for animals. The budget for the zoo right now appears to me to be adequate. However, it always you can expand programs. They have a lot of, I think, rare animals, a few rare animals out there, but our zoo is not that big. And what it does is, I think, help encourage younger children, particularly, and again, back to my desire for younger children and their excitement of learning. You know, it's very important, I think, for children to understand and see things that they normally don't see in their little neighborhoods. When you can go to the zoo, you can see a lot of different type of animals that you would never see if you're just driving or walking or living in a city. And I think it's just a great educational opportunity.
okay. What type of relationship should the Park District have with the city of Springfield, and do you think that relationship exists now?
I honestly believe that the Park District needs to have a viable and working relationship with the city. There are many things that happen within the city that affect the parks, and those are the types of relationships that you have to have. I mean, it's vital to me that the city and the Park District are cooperatively working together.
What are some examples where you see cooperation?
Back to, again, talking about security issues. I see a great deal of cooperation there. In regards to maintenance and of the roads that go through the different parks, I think there's a cooperative effort to be able to help there. Other programs that the Park District put on can be supported by the city a great deal. I think that in order to bring visitors and new folks to this town, you have to build up those positive things that you have. And I think the Park District is one of the positive entities that we have in this city. So I think it's very important. The relationship that I'm understanding currently is that the mayor and the aldermen and city workers all seem to enjoy working together and not have a lot of conflict.
One of the programs that the Park District is considering doing, as is the city and UIS, is a bike sharing program that they're looking at doing. They all want to contract with the same vendor so that, you know, there could maybe be some sharing. Would you support such a program?
I could support such a program. I've not really seen or had the ability to research how this bike sharing program works. You know, when I started reading about it in the journal, it came to my mind that some of the larger cities, I could see it working very well. But in these smaller cities, I don't necessarily see that bike sharing as a big issue. But again, I'm here to learn. So if there are opportunities to have a cooperative relationship with these bike paths, and so I think it is important to do. Recreation is about the park. So
what do you see as the hurdles of a possible bike sharing program?
Theft. Okay. You know, to me, the biggest issue about bike sharing, I see these bikes in the big cities, and I mean, unfortunately, I see them in places where they're not supposed to be, and they're laying on the side of the road, or somebody then took one, and now you got to go find it. I don't know if tracking those bikes could be a possibility, making sure that you know where every bike is, just like they do with the buses now, that you got an app you can go to and tell where your bus is. I wish I'd have had that when I was coming up, you know. But my biggest hurdle, I think the biggest hurdle would be the destruction or the theft of equipment.
Sure. Another area where the city and the park district can interact sometimes would be with TIF districts, which the city uses for incentives for economic development. But of course, the flip side is the other tax entities, like a park district, don't get all the property taxes they would do. The district, for instance, spoke out against one of the more recent proposed ones, the Lumber Lane one, they call it. What do you think of these of TIF districts by the city, and how would you feel if the city wanted more TIF districts if you were a board member?
TIF districts are beneficial to companies or individuals coming in. What I have read, a lot of times is that they don't develop or don't have the buildup that as anticipated a lot of times. A lot of companies come in, take the TIF money, or individuals take the TIF money, and then don't always stick to what they have agreed to. And I think that's one of the biggest issues with the TIF. Of course, Park District would be losing money in regards to building different TIF districts. But at this point, I would say that I could support TIFs, but again, it's about what kind of contract and what agreements are made in regards to those TIF districts. Because right now, I think that land up on the north end with the Pillsbury plant, that's a major problem right now, I think, with the asbestos problems and the oil issues, the groundwater issues. But, you know, I don't know if they can do anything about it, but
we were talking earlier about some of the smaller neighborhood parks. A lot of subdivisions have built parks too. Do you think the park district should take those over, or should the subdivisions HOA do? I mean, where do you think those could fall?
Again, you're talking about a budget issue,
Yeah.
okay? My position has always been that if I can afford to do it, then we can do it. But if you have built a park and find yourself not able to maintain or keep it, then if the park district can afford to take over the park, it would be, I think, beneficial. However, again, that's a question that you need to really look at, you know, how and where, because you don't want a lot of parks right next to each other, you know, and you also want to make sure that there's sufficient resources to maintain it. And that's one of my biggest issues, is that these parks have to be maintained. And I can't say we can take on more parks until we can maintain and with total efficiency the ones you have.
So what can you characterize from your life experience, work experience, how that might help you on a board like this?
As I said, I'm one of those that I have sat on many different boards and tried to be beneficial to those efforts. I believe that it is very important that minorities, I've said it before, have a voice. I'm usually one of those that I would prefer to be in the room and to know that the fight for what's right has been done. I'm a team player. I don't believe in going into the room, not getting what I want, and then coming out and demolishing everything. No, I just want to make sure that if there is an opportunity for the smaller guys to have a voice, then I want that fight to go on.
I do want to go back really quick. You had talked about accessibility issues. Well, I guess what would you like to see at these parks? Were you see the accessibility issues? Would you like to see more like what we have at Southwind Park elsewhere, or talk to us what would be ideal in your mind?
Well, again, as I said, I've heard a lot of citizens, or in my discussions with them, talk about the difficulty in accessibility. And I see that the cities are putting in a lot of new curve entrances. And so those types of accessibility issues are very important.
Okay.
Bathroom facilities are very important. Many of these smaller neighborhood parks don't have bathroom facilities, and it's very difficult, I guess, particularly at my age when you're taking high blood pressure medicine, you need to be relieved every once in a while. And when you're outside, I think those are the things that absolutely with the accessibility are the issues.
Anything else? Well, we thank you, Hewitt, for meeting with us today, and we invite you to give a closing statement as to why voters should choose you on Election Day.
Choose me because I'm the best choice that you could make. I stand head over everyone else. I am a dedicated individual who believes that it is very important that citizens be involved. I've always been involved in different venues and activities, and I hope to continue to be involved. I am the person that will tell you the truth. I am the person that will show you that integrity is important, and I'm the person that shows you that leadership can be an honest politician. I don't think that the word politician means you automatically are corrupt or a liar. I just believe that, and there was a time when, being a politician was considered a positive and good thing. I don't know what happened, but I'm hoping to change those ideas.